next Finance Bureau of Accounts budget hearing, which means that the Bureau of Administrative Adjudication is on deck, which means I'm going to be increasingly excited for the next 25 minutes. It's just getting that much closer. But that said, we got Commissioner Del Vecchio, Councilor Allen, Councilor Bay, Councilor Thompson, Councilor Green, Councilor Driscoll, Councilor Rudd, and go for it with the Bureau of Accounts.
I'll just give you a quick background. Bureau of Accounts primarily is responsible for the accounting, payroll, and we have a unit, examiner of claims, where any payments that are dispersed, vendor payments, are pre-audited, pre-reviewed prior to payment being made. So the Bureau of Accounts is primarily responsible for those three areas. One of the items we did over the last year, and I believe the council just approved this a few months ago, the deferred comp program for the city, we transferred that to New York State. That took up a lot of time, myself, some staff members in the BOA. So I should free up a lot of time that paperwork and items that we typically had to be involved in, now we're moving to the state for responsibility. So that's really an important point. We've been looking at that for many years, and I'm glad we made that. And so right as we speak, the transition's occurring. The staffs are meeting to coordinate the transfer of the assets to the state plan. We spoke earlier about the technology upgrades and some of the items I'd like to see going forward, and like to continue to work on that. We've got along in that same discussion. And we had some discussion during the break about fraud prevention controls. For example, in my capacity, I'm constantly receiving emails that are trying to trick me into doing something, transferring money, whatever. So we just need to be more diligent on that, and we're doing that. We're doing prevention controls. We've implemented positive pay on our vendor file. So when we issue a check to a vendor, that file is subsequently transferred to the bank, and we list all the details on the check to the bank. So if someone steals one of our checks from a vendor and changes the dollar amount, changes the vendor name, when they go to cash it, it will not match up. It becomes and we have a system with the bank that allows us to sign off if there is, for some reason, the computer printed, it just doesn't match up perfectly, but it's a legitimate check. So there's some safeguards in effect, but it was designed to prevent theft. And over the years, and it still continues today, where individuals, their mail is stolen, and we had a case years back where mail was stolen from one of our vendors, and the party that stole the check altered the payee. The city's not held responsible for that. The bank that ultimately cashed that check was. So we've implemented many of those over the years. We'll continue to do that through this unit. And the only other item you've been reading about was the new W-4 that the IRS has proposed. I think over the next few months it's going to be a challenge for us as a city. For one would be the AS-400 we spoke about, the payroll aspect of it. But in my opinion, there's nobody, even in PeopleSoft, that's ready for that new W-4. And I don't know if you're familiar with it. I seen the draft of this last year. It was so complicated and questionable that the IRS didn't roll it out. But now they're talking about it again, and they're rolling this out again, where effectively our employees would be required to give us a tax return of a history of what they anticipate they're going to collect as revenue from all job sources. So it really is I don't know where we're going over the next few months with that, I just want to make sure you're all aware of it. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be an issue for us. It's where, and I've seen the draft of it. I can show it to you if you're interested in that, where we as individuals. So right now you file a W-4 with the finance department, married 0, single 1, whatever your withholdings. Well, that plan is to change, where the withholding is going to be based upon a net amount that you tell the city. So we're talking about retooling the payroll software, the AS400. I don't know how that's going to roll out. Like I said, the IRS did not implement that last year, because in 2018 it was a draft form, and I thought that we'd be implementing that in 19, but that did not happen. So that'll be a challenge over the next year. I'll keep. No, W-2 will still be issued at the end of the year. This relates to how much money you would like the city to withhold from your paycheck. And right now, it's the system has been in place by the federal government for years.
Nobody wants the city to hold money from their paycheck.
Well, yeah, and it gets into private. Yeah, and it gets also into the privacy aspect. Because now you're disclosing to your employer, where you work, what your other sources of revenue are. I mean, I don't like the idea of doing that myself. I don't like the idea of collecting that on our employees either. So how we handle that over the next few months is a major issue. We'll talk further about it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If you read on it, feel free to offer comments on it. But other than that, that's the entire BOA budget. As you know, we were asked by the administration to cut 2.5%. We eliminated a vacant accountant 1 position, so the actual budget decreased. So for department wide, that department took a big hit, and we decreasing salaries by about 49,000. We did increase our. We show an increase in the rental professional. And that is primarily in the fringe benefit area. We have 1 employee who's an accountant, 1 on the Urban Renewal Agency, and that individual shows a salary increase for step purposes, as well as the related fringe benefit cost for that individual, as well as the fringe benefit cost. We have on SURA payroll, in addition to the accountant, we have a payroll coordinator whose salary is split with NBD 50%, and we have a part-time payroll coordinator on urban renewal. So that's what represents the 166,056 in professional services. I think that's on page 103.
Do you as a commissioner see any positive effects from having the SURA employees instead of civil service titles doing the work that would be in the general salary line?
I would prefer to see everyone in the salary line. Let me give you some background on this particular. The payroll coordinator position that's in the Bureau of Accounts that we split 50% with NBD. Many years ago, I'm talking 10 plus years now, at least 10 years that I can remember, NBD employed a full-time payroll person. The decision we made was when that person left the city, we transferred those responsibilities to the Department of Finance and split that person 50% with NBD. So that was the justification to keep it in the Urban Renewal Agency, because it did relate to the block grant and to all the federal grants that are processed through NBD. So that was the rationale there for that position. The payroll coordinator that came back part-time, along the same lines, continues to do work not only for the city but for Urban Renewal. That's the rationale for that. The accountant position, the individual at the time was retained on urban renewal because we felt when we moved to PeopleSoft, the individual had some good knowledge of the software, and when the city migrated to PeopleSoft, there were a lot of problems back then, and this individual had some understanding of it, so the position was kept in urban renewal for that reason. Personally, yeah, if we can move people to the city payroll. Unfortunately, this person, unless a test is taken, the only way to move the individual to the city payroll would result in a termination, unless there's a valid civil service list that the county currently has, and this individual's on the list. So it's not quick. It's not easy just to transfer a person to the civil service classification without a layoff. I guess that's trying to. I don't know how else to phrase that, because you have no rights, even though it's a union title, which is, again, the accountant one is a union title, and the person has union rights. But the agency cannot say, okay, we're going to make you a civil servant. We don't have the authority to do that as a city. You have to go through the process, take the examination, and be reachable on the list. So I will tell you, everyone in the, we've had one retirement. We're going to have another one in the BOA. It's going to be challenging over the next 12 months in terms of accountants. Another reason why that position does become important, and the person is occupying is important. Everyone down there has taken all the tests that were offered by the county a few weeks ago. They offered all the accountant tests, and hopefully everyone can get on those civil service lists, and if we're able to, we'll move the individual off the urban renewal payroll. Yeah. I can follow up with you on that later.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions on the Bureau of Accounts? Seeing none, I guess we can